For most of us, summer is flying by, and before you know it, school will be back in session. But before that, we have the Summer Olympics, news from our friends at the NCAA and the WNBA, and more that are shaping what lies ahead in women's basketball in the months and years to come. We are bouncing around like the best lead passes out on a fast break today, right here on Locked On Women's Basketball.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, happy Monday, friends. It is July 29th, 2024, the last Monday of the month of July. It is probably really warm where you are, and so I hope you are staying cool, watering your plants, and not looking at what that AC bill is. I know in my part of the country, there is going to be a heat dome, and it's going to get hot. Hi, everybody. Missy Heidrick, national correspondent at The Next. Thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Well, you can follow me at Missy Heidrick, and then be sure to follow this podcast at Locked On WBB, and then come see all of my amazing colleagues over at The Next at www.thenexthoops.com for complete coverage of all things women's basketball. Well, while we are on a midsummer break in the WNBA right now, there is no lack of basketball for our eyes to see. The 2024 Summer Olympics are a feast for all of us, sports junkies that are out there and those that just want to tune in and cheer. From swimming to gymnastics to golf, surfing, track and field, volleyball, soccer, and of course, basketball. And we get two kinds. We get 3v3 and the traditional 5-on-5. Team USA is raring to go, and we'll toss around some stories making news for as they are hitting the court in Paris. There is also news from the NCAA impacting the college game, and it never takes a hiatus, it seems. And while I talked about what was probably coming a few weeks ago, we now have some definitive answers. And we have to break them all down just so we have an idea of what lies ahead as we continue to be fans and look at the game of college basketball in the world of the crazy landscape that is college athletics. And then a couple of teasers in the WNBA as well. A new media rights deal as the league continues to blaze forward in a time when the game is growing to new heights all around. Well, I want to start across the country or across into another continent. We go to the Summer Olympics in Paris. This is such an exciting time. I don't know about any of you, but it is something I look forward to all the time. I love to be able to turn on my television and see all different types of sports and athletes from all over the world competing. And I think the crazy part is we live in such an environment here in the US where professional sports are such a big part of what we do. And we see college sports on a daily basis: football, basketball, volleyball, baseball, softball, things that are on our television all the time. What we forget is that there is a host of athletes out there that compete in their specific sports that really work to just complete and have a craft of which is unlike anybody else. And then they compete in the Olympics every 4 years. This is their one chance to shine. And so I feel like it is such a cool time to be able to turn on your television, especially when it is in a whole other time zone and in another continent like it is in Paris and in Europe, that you can turn on your TV at any hour of any day and you will find something to watch, which is pretty darn cool. But we've got to talk a little bit about Team USA and what is going on there with this women's basketball team, both men's and women's 3v3 and 5-on-5 opportunities, as we hope and we expect to bring hold gold medals back to the U.S. For the women's Team USA squad, they 5-on-5, they actually start their play today, 3 p.m. Eastern against Japan. This is when it all starts. So depending on when you listen or watch this podcast, game may already be done. It is currently little after 12 noon here, my time, Central in Kansas City. And so we've got just a couple hours before that game tips. But they are going for their 8th straight gold medal. Yes, that is correct. 8th straight gold medal. Monday Thursday and Sunday of this week will be the group phase or pool games, as we like to say. And then on August 7th is when the elimination begins for Team USA on the women's side. August 7th is when the quarterfinals will play for the 3v3, of which brought home a gold medal the last time out in the Olympics. They have pool games Tuesday through Saturday of this week, and then begins quarterfinal play for them after that as well. Now, just a couple of things that have come to light, I think, as we look at Team USA and we think about this process. And there was a lot of conversation and a lot of consternation about selection of this team and what it looks like. They did take a loss in the WNBA All-Star game, which was maybe put up a couple red flags for folks. Keep in mind, happened the last time they did this. This team gets together, they gel, and it is one that is a greatly experienced squad. When I talk about experience, I want to tip my cap a little bit to some of the things that were said and some of the statements that Diana Taurasi, one of the great players that we have seen come through the women's game in the history of this game, both in the college and in the professional ranks, and what she has done as a leader in USA basketball. She will be retiring and will not be a part of USA basketball going forward. This is her last time at the Olympics. There are 5 newcomers to 5-on-5 on this squad. But I think what the interesting thing, and if you go ahead and Google, you can go to your social media channels and you can listen to a couple of the statements that she made. 20 years of experience with Team USA basketball. And it was interesting because I thought her statement of talking about how some would think that that's an Achilles heel or that might be something for a female, but give credit, because I do think Diana Taurasi brought forward a couple of the things that a lot of us have been talking about. I know I talk about it with others. I've had conversations on this podcast with other people that work at the Next as we start thinking about passing the torch, about aging rosters, both Team USA, in the WNBA, how you move to the next generation of great talent within your sport. We've seen it happen, especially with women's soccer, and about how you can get a little top heavy with experience and players that have been part of that organization, part of the fabric of it for a long time. And then what does that do to the next set of players and the next generation of talent? You've got to be open to that. So this is a twofold statement, at least for my part. Number one, hats off to Diana Taurasi and what she has done, because without her trailblazing, without her talent, some of the things that have happened in the world of women's basketball, we wouldn't be where we are. So give thanks to that, and the fact that she has been a part of this amazing run as Team USA now goes for its 8th straight gold medal. But it also is a tip of the cap to say, and an understanding that we have to start looking at how we can rework rosters both in the WNBA and especially with USA basketball to embrace and to take on some of this younger talent. Will they have the insane success from the get-go? Probably not. Would you maybe lose an all-star game or an exhibition game along the way? Possibly. But you have to start giving credit to this new crop of talent, these next generational level players that have come into the game so that they have a place. That leads me to my next statement. And I think it's one that Dawn Staley has made. She was interviewed over the weekend and talking about the selection process of Team USA. And if they had known that Caitlin Clark was playing the way she has been playing over the past few weeks and the past month or so in the WNBA, would that have changed? And would she have been on this roster? Maybe, possibly, more than likely, yes. So we have to think about this on a global perspective, folks. We have to start thinking about how we can turn some of these rosters over and embrace the young talent. That is where we are going. Team USA on the men's side, they have done it. Do they have their stalwarts? Absolutely. LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, those people have earned that spot, just as Diana Taurasi has earned her place for USA women's basketball. But I also look and say there is a crop of young players and young talent that they need to be the next generation. They need to be the face. They are starting to be that already, and they should be part of what Team USA and what the USA Olympic Selection Committee does moving forward. They go hand in hand. How we embrace the generation and the next group on the professional side, it is going to be part of what USA basketball does as well. But for the next 2 weeks, what do we get to do? We get to watch 3v3 and the traditional 5-on-5. And as Team USA goes for their 8th straight gold medal on the women's side and on the men's side, it's not a slam dunk, but it's pretty darn close, and can't wait to watch those games. And if you're tuning in today here on Monday the 29th, 3 p.m. Eastern, Team USA women, they take on Japan in round 1. All right, when we come back, we're going to bounce the news over to the NCAA. There have been lawsuit settlements and the move people have been waiting for on scholarships and roster numbers. We're going to talk about it on the other side. Well, I just told you a couple minutes ago, I live here in Kansas City, and one of the hottest tickets in this town, outside of trying to figure if you can get Chiefs tickets moving forward or just going to their training camp, is to see the much improved Kansas City Royals. Game Time is the authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. It's the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can see the view of your seat on your phone before you buy. All-in pricing shows you your total cost up front, and you can buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. There are so many ways to save money on tickets no matter when you buy. Last-minute deals, exclusive flash deals, zone deals when you pick the section, and Game Time picks the seats. It's big savings. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, go ahead and create that account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And now a message from our friends at Magic Spoon, who have been a fantastic supporter of us here at Locked On Women's Basketball. Well, growing up, cereal is one of the best parts of being a kid. But as you get older, you've got to watch out for the sugar and the empty carbs. Magic Spoon has the amazing flavors you love, but high protein and less sugar. Now there is a variety pack, 4 flavors: cocoa, fruity, frosted, and peanut butter. And this pack is 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and 4 to 5 grams of net carbs, only 140 calories a serving. It's high protein, has 0 grams of sugar, keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free. Huge favorites in my house are the cocoa and the frosted. Empty boxes all around. So go to magicspoon.com/lockedon to grab a variety pack and try it today. And be sure to use our promo code LOCKEDON at checkout to save $5 off your order. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed by a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no question asked. Who couldn't love a happiness guarantee? I think everyone should have one. So remember, start your day off right with a delicious bowl of high protein cereal at magicspoon.com/lockedon and use the code LOCKEDON to save $5 off. Hi, everybody. Missy Heidrick, and welcome back to Locked On Women's Basketball. Thank you for joining us. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? You have to turn down the volume with all that shouting, possibly. Well, make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, as I mentioned a little bit ago, Team USA on the women's side hitting the hard court. The men, they got a big win yesterday and very emphatic finish for them. Team USA on the women's side for 5-on-5, they hit the hard court today. Their first game against Japan, 3 Eastern, if you have time to tune in. If not, you will catch all of the highlights all over social media and everywhere else. I want to bounce the pass and we head into the NCAA because there has been some news. A few weeks ago, I was able to talk a little bit about what we thought was coming down the pipe with some of the settlements and the antitrust lawsuits and all of the things that were going to happen in college sports. Well, it has happened and we have got there. The NCAA and its 5 power conferences and lawyers representing a class of Division I athletes filed the detailed terms of the antitrust lawsuit last week, and they absolutely is going to reshape not only the business side, but I think everything in terms of the landscape of college sports going forward. We know that they had agreed to some of these settlement terms last May, but now it has really been, and we have inked it. And this is another important step that the NCAA has come out and said in their statement to provide increased benefits to student athletes, but hopefully to create a more stable and sustainable model for the future of college athletics and future sports in general. Now, a couple of things that we need to know, and as we move forward, and we've talked about a little bit here in the past, that so much of this has been the impetus behind it. It all started with NIL. When that launched in 2021, the world has changed dramatically. We know that. Outside of transfer portals and what this has looked like, now we are going to be in a different position. And a couple of the things that really have stood out to me that I think are some of the bigger ones that I want to just give you some insight on. Feel free. If you Google this, you head to ESPN.com. You can go to businessofcollegesports.com, which has a great article that will outline some of the information as well, just to give you the nuts and bolts, because we have to be prepared. You're going to see it, you're going to hear it, and people are going to be talking about it. Now, I tip my cap to all of the college coaches out there at every single level, because summer recruiting has officially come to an end. They're all probably trying to take a couple days of a breather before the moving vans head into their cities and students and their new crop of players are there. But they have just a little bit of a wiggle room, but yet these are always the things that coaches have on the front of their brain. They know that they've got to be able to manage this and deal with it at the institutional side within their entire athletic department, but also now as we start talking about it within their individual programs. Well, schools are going to be permitted now for the first time to pay their athletes directly via name, images, likeness, in the deals under the terms of the settlement. They can provide up to 22% of the average revenue that power conferences generate from media rights, ticket sales, and sponsorships. Now, all of these things have to do with some of these power conferences. As we start thinking about what happens later on, well, that all is a trickle-down effect. But I'm going to give you some of the details in the summary from this antitrust lawsuit. Number one, any Division I athlete who played a sport from 2016 to present day is eligible for past damages, which will be determined by a proposed formula. Football and men's basketball players from power conference schools will be eligible to receive an average of $135,000 in back pay. Women's basketball could receive an average of $35,000. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Schools, as we said, will be permitted to pay them directly. You're talking about a $20 to $22 million figure that kind of serves in effect maybe as a salary cap, and that will increase over time as leagues' revenues increase in those power conferences. And those payments, when combined with tuition and other benefits already received, definitely create a system of which these students now are part of what we would probably look at as revenue sharing. And athletes will still be able to make money off NIL and third-party deals. That is all going to happen. The NCAA agreed to remove any limits on the number of scholarships a school can provide. We will talk about scholarships and roster numbers in just a moment. Now, I want to go back to the back pay idea. And what does that mean? How does that work? Why is it here? Well, this is part of the settlement, specifically for women's basketball. Women's basketball athletes who received or will receive a full grant and aid scholarship and played or will play on a Division I women's basketball team that is a member of the Power Five, including Notre Dame, have been or will be initially eligible from June 15th, 2016 to September 15th, 2024. And they are providing estimates for this group, and they're kind of broken down. But ultimately, they have come to the fact that there could be a back pay that a student athlete a female student athlete in women's basketball is eligible for, an average of $35,000 if they are in a Power 5 league and or Notre Dame, and they played between June 15th of 2016 up until September 15th of 2024. That's a lot of money, and that is money that is going to be coming directly into the pockets of those women's basketball student athletes. The part we have to start talking about is that there has been a change, and the change that has come in rosters and what that will mean, that all Division I athletic scholarships in every conference, not just Power 5, have been eliminated as part of the settlement, and the new roster limits have been set. All scholarships will be equivalency awards, meaning they can all be partial or they can be full. It really is a differentiator. Now, in women's basketball, it has not changed. Men's basketball has gone up too. They went from 13 to 15. Women's basketball is going to go to 15. So again, no longer is things determined by the number of scholarships. It is going to be determined by the number of roster spots. So you are looking at a maximum number of roster spots of 15 for women's basketball. Does that mean that they could have non-scholarship based, non-student athletes, a walk-on that is not getting paid? Absolutely. And that could be looked at very differently. That can be in addition. But this is where we are looking at how those go. There's still some ambiguity, I think, from the NCAA as to how they are going to deal with quote unquote roster spots. And I think that is one that I think everyone's a little bit questionable on. And it'll be interesting to see how they go about that. A couple of things I want to that of note of changes. Softball, they have gone to 25 in terms of a roster spot. Baseball has gone to 34. Outdoor track and field on the men's side, 45. Outdoor track and field on the women's side, 45. A sport like lacrosse, men's has gone to 48. Women's has gone to 38. We look at something like tennis. They've gone to 10 on both sides, men's and women's. In volleyball, men's volleyball, 18. Women's volleyball, 18. So these roster numbers have changed. We will no longer be talking about scholarships. We're talking about roster numbers. They've been talking about paying players. It's going to happen. It's coming. Back pay is eligible now, and how they are going to manage that still to be determined. But this is about not only how they have come from this antitrust and how it has been part of a larger picture, but also, is this the model now that can help to stabilize college athletics? We know that there are still rumblings and a lot of undercurrent conversation about whether or not there still might be new changes in conference realignment. It could happen. Don't ever get complacent and think that we are done. It absolutely can. Does some of this change it? You bet. Because if I'm looking at a school that knows that I've got to increase my roster spots in these sports, others may suffer. We may be looking at institutions having to make very difficult decisions, and how this plays into Title IX yet still to be determined. But will that make a difference as we might look at mid-majors or smaller institutions not being able to carry the sports that they have because of the roster changes, and that we could see some sports go by the wayside? All to be determined, yet has not been figured out. What we do know is that this is coming and that we should never sit still, because if there's anything we've learned in the month of July over the last many years, is that it is never quiet on the forefront of college athletics. All right, when we come back, the W may be on their Olympic break, but there is news definitely to break down. Hi, everybody. Missy Heidrick. Thank you for joining us here on Locked On Women's Basketball. And I've just been running around today, kind of thinking about all of the topics that have been on my brain and have been part of the landscape of women's basketball over the last couple of weeks. We've talked about Team USA and the Olympics kicking off. I hope you're having a blast watching each and every sport that you like to see over the course of the next 2 weeks. We've talked about the NCAA and the changes that have come, and the announcement that came last week that truly they have adopted the roster limit changes, that there's going to be back pay for student athletes within a time frame from 2016 to 2024. They're going to be eligible for that in those Power 5 conferences, and that the ultimate idea of quote unquote revenue sharing is coming down the pike, that they are going to be directly able to pay student athletes. We don't know what's going to happen and how that's going to be affected in the world of Title IX. Those are questions still to be answered. But as then we run the bounce pass and almost been able to lay it in at the end of this episode here today, I just wanted to touch on something I think is actually kind of the next great conversation around the WNBA and women's basketball. Last week, it was announced by the WNBA that they have a new 11-year media rights deal that features partnerships with a host of carriers: Disney, Amazon Prime Video, and a new rights holder in NBC Universal. The deal is valued at approximately $2.2 billion. That's right, $2.2 billion or $20 million per year. And that is what has been reported over the course of the last few days. Future agreements with additional partners are always on the table and could bring the league's overall media deal closer to that $3 billion mark. Just think where we were maybe 5-10 years ago, and we were talking about the W and figuring out how this league would be sustainable. This is on the back of the growth of women's basketball, both at the grassroots level, that we see it in the high school level or the AAU level, as we see it in the college game at both the mid-major as well as at the Power 5 level. And now we see it on the professional level. Some of the very best are on the stage these next 2 weeks when we think about the Olympics. But now the W stands on its own. And it's something that a lot of people have been working towards. Give credit to those that have had the grind to figure out and to persevere, because it's not simple. And it is a generational scenario that we've watched a host of women go through this league and be the ones that have had to be the trailblazers. Others are reaping the benefit of that now, and we absolutely need to tip our cap to them and to their experience. But we also have to think about those that have had a forward thought, that they have thought outside the box, because sometimes that's exactly what you have to do. And I give credit to the WNBA commissioner, Kathy Engelbert. She said in a statement, I quote, "Partnering with Disney, Amazon, and NBC Universal marks a monumental chapter in WNBA history and clearly demonstrates the significant rise in value and the historic level of interest in women's basketball," end quote. According to the release, Disney, which does own the majority of ESPN, Amazon, and then NBC Universal, they will show more than 125 regular season and playoff games each season, including a minimum of 25 regular season games on Disney platforms. So now you're looking at ABC, ESPN, ESPN2, all of that they would be part of how they distribute the playoffs and move forward, and that all-star events and the draft, that will all be included, and they will be taken to the next level as well. The value, the elevation of both the profile of players and of this league continues to grow. But then it leads us to the next question. What's next? No pun intended here for those of us here at Locked On Women's Basketball and at the Next Hoops. But what's next? What happens moving forward? Well, I think if you listen closely enough to both the players and to the people that cover this league and know it and really understand it and the behind the scenes working, now we have to start talking about how those conversations are going to narrow. And that is going to be about things associated with the collective bargaining agreement, player salaries, benefits, the things that are going to impact them on an individual basis. They've been working, they've been clawing, and they've been seeing this. Now the proof is in the pudding, right? That the television rights and the value of which these business entities see this league, how is then that going to be transferred into the players, into their salaries and into their benefits? Will there be a point in time where these women do not need to go overseas during the winter months to play, to make additional money, that they can have all of the training, all of the things that they need right here stateside and not have to do that? They can, if the salaries are increased, if the benefits are there, if the facilities within these organizations and franchises make that available. You look at some of the brand new practice facilities that have been being debuted and others that are being announced. That is all part of this larger global picture. It goes back to the idea with the NCAA, as everyone said, well, at some point in time, shouldn't student athletes be paid? Well, then it's not necessarily amateur. Doesn't that go against the idea? I go to college and I get a fantastic, I pay my way through school by playing basketball, and then I get a degree at the end. And when I leave, I have no debt. I have no loans. That was part of the equation. It's different now. We see that. But that's because of the value and the things that have been brought forward by those that have come in the past. And now we look into this next generation. Generational talent is what we are seeing both in the college game and in the WNBA. With that said, that means deals like this, $2.2 billion estimated for a television deal for the WNBA. We would have thought someone was crazy if they had said that 5, 10, or 15 years ago. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the elevation of the women's game. We see it now, and we will continue to see it. People will tune in. They will watch Team USA over the course of the next 2 weeks, and they will continue to tune in, and they will continue to see and be exposed to women's basketball at every level, because you have this type of media rights and this type of value and partners who believe in it and see it as well. All right. We've bounced. We've taken a bounce pass from the top of the key. We've tried to get down the floor as fast as possible. I hope we have laid it in. And when we do, it's ultimately about each and every one of us understanding that we are in for a real treat, not only during the Olympics, when the W comes back in full swing, they'll be finishing the regular season, then heading to the playoffs. And before you know it, folks, October will be here and we will be talking about the very best in the college game. And then maybe answering a few of our questions that we don't seem to always have the answers to, but yet I don't know where we'll get them, but we'll find them. I promise you, sooner or later, we will get there. I just want to thank you for joining us here today on Locked On Women's Basketball. It's always a pleasure just to share some thoughts and ideas and hopefully give all of you enough information as you go out there and talk to your friends and family, your colleagues, and your fan base about what's going on in the world of women's basketball. Well, you can follow me at Missy Heidrick on Twitter and all of my amazing colleagues by following us and going over www.thenexthoops.com and then follow this podcast as well at Locked On WBB. Well, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic week. Enjoy the Olympics. Stay cool and come back and see us all week right here for more news and more information, all on Locked On Women's Basketball.